So guys, let's continue from question 21 onwards. It says brown nitrogen dioxide reacts to form a colorless dinitrogen tetraoxide in a reversible reaction. The forward reaction is exo. So we know exotil, we know this already, exotil. In exothermic reactions, if you increase the temperature, the reaction goes to the left. Which changes would make the equilibrium mixture darker in color? Now darker in color means pushing it towards the left. It means we should increase the temperature. So temperature should be higher so that the reaction goes to the left. It can be C or it can be D for doctor. Pressure, higher pressure, more pressure supports less molar side, less gaseous moles wali side. So you're going to be pushing the equilibrium towards the if you increase the pressure, you're going to push it towards the right. If you decrease the pressure, you're going to push it towards the more molar side, which is obviously the left side. So in this case, you want to push it to the left because left side is brown in color. You need it to be darker. So you're going to decrease the pressure, you're going to increase the temperature. So it goes for C for cat. Which row shows the pH values of 0.1 mole per decimeter cube solutions of ammonia, which is alkaline gas, hydrochloric acid, strong acid, sodium chloride, a neutral salt, and sodium hydroxide, again alkali or alkaline substance. So ammonia is going to be obviously more than 7, HCl very low, sodium chloride is going to be 7, and then sodium hydroxide is going to be very high. So it has to be C for cat because sodium hydroxide is not 1, HCl is not 7, ammonia is not 7. So obviously the only answer is C for cat. 4 test tubes are set up as shown: silver nitrate, copper 2 nitrate, lead 2 nitrate, sodium nitrate. What is the effect of adding dilute hydrochloric acid in each test tube? If you add chloride ions here from the dilute hydrochloric acid, you're going to get the precipitates of silver chloride because of the silver ions. When you add it in copper nitrate, no reaction because copper nitrate is not really disturbed by it. Again, chloride ions from the HCl dilute acid, you're going to get the precipitates of lead 2 chloride. And again in sodium nitrate, no change. So you're going to get a precipitate formed in test tube number like test tube W and Y, and no precipitation in the X and Z. So B for Barrows is the answer. Aqueous ammonia reacts with compound to form a salt ammonium phosphate, which looks like this: ammonium triphosphate. What type of reaction will ammonia undergo to form ammonium phosphate? Now you can see ammonia is actually a basic substance, and if it's making phosphate, phosphate must have been coming from a phosphoric acid. So it has to be a neutralization where phosphoric acid is neutralized by ammonia to make a salt, which is ammonium phosphate. So for question 24, B for Barrows is the answer. Sulfuric acid is manufactured by the contact process. Several substances are involved in the process, including vanadium 5 oxide. Which roles are played by vanadium 5 oxide and water? So vanadium oxide is definitely a catalyst because it enhances the speed, and water is actually a reactant. If you remember, the SO3 made is first dissolved into sulfuric acid for the safety reasons, and it gives you H2S2O7, and then it reacts with water. So the main reactant is actually water, where the SO3 gas reacts and forms the sulfuric acid. Some properties which indicate the differences in elements are listed: metallic character, number of electrons in an atom, number of protons in an atom, total number of electrons in an atom. Which two properties increase across a period? So when you're moving from left to right across a period, obviously your metallic character decreases. You become more and more non-metal, so it doesn't increase. You go towards the non-metallic side. When you talk about number of electron shells in an atom, within a same period they remain the same. The number of protons in an atom, it increases because when you're moving towards next group, you have more electrons in total and you have more protons, so it also increases more electrons. So 3 and 4 is the answer. You get more electrons in total, more electrons in the outer shell, and overall more protons. Germanium is in group 4 of the periodic table. It has a proton number of 32. Selenium is in group 6. It has a proton number of 34. Which prediction can be made based on the positions of germanium and selenium in the periodic table? Germanium atom has 2 more valence electrons than a selenium atom. So when you talk about it, selenium is in group 6. Outer shell has 6 electrons, and germanium has outer shell to be having 4 electrons. So it says germanium atom has 2 more valence electrons. That is so not true. Rather, selenium has more. Germanium atom forms a G3 plus ion. No, sorry, it's in group 4. It doesn't make plus 3. Germanium atom has more metallic character. Yes, that is true, because smaller group numbers have more metallic character. That is true. Germanium has similar chemical properties to tellurium, and selenium has similar properties to tin. Tin is a transition element. Again, tellurium is a transition element. You can't fix them in the same groups. They can't have the same properties. They're not in the same family of the periodic table. So it's going to be C for cat. The proton number of cesium is 55. Compared with lithium, the melting point of cesium is low, because lithium is higher, cesium is lower, and melting point decreases in group 1 down the group. And the reaction of cesium with water is more vigorous because reactivity increases. So reactivity increases. The number of valence electrons in cesium is same because they're in the same group. So valence electrons are the same as in the same group. So melting point is lower, reactivity is higher, and the same number of valence electrons. Nickel is a transition element. Which properties does it have? It can act as a catalyst. Yes, thank you. It is used in the addition of hydrogen on alkenes. It conducts electricity when molten. Yeah, it's a metal. It will definitely conduct electricity. It forms colored compounds. It is a transition element. It has only one oxidation state in its compound. Now that is not true because it's a transition element, so we can't be sure of that. It may have variable oxidation states. Which metal reacts with steam and can be extracted from its ore by reduction with carbon? So if it's reacting with steam, it is a fairly reactive metal, and it can be reacted or extracted from its ore by reduction with carbon. So carbon is higher and that particular metal is lower. So which metal is lower than carbon? Copper doesn't react with steam. Calcium and magnesium can't be extracted with carbon. It has to be zinc, because zinc can be extracted with carbon because zinc is lower than carbon. 3 correct statements about aluminium are listed. Aluminium is the most common metal in the Earth's crust. It is costly to extract aluminium from its ore bauxite because it involves electrolysis. So I'm assuming that's true. The world supply of bauxite is limited. Obviously, that's an ore. It is indeed limited. So which 2 statements are correct? These 2 statements are correct. Which is the most common metal in the Earth's crust? That is not aluminium, and that is something you should search for yourself. Now, they're talking about the element, they're talking about the metal, not the element. So we all know which is the most common element, but I would suggest to look for which is the most common metal. We use it a lot in our daily lives. Sometimes we make really important alloys out of it. So think about it, which is the most common metal. It's definitely not gold. I wish it was. Attaching pieces of magnesium to underground iron pipes can protect the iron from corrosion. Which reaction protects the iron from corrosion? So obviously, magnesium sacrifices itself. How does it sacrifices itself? It oxidizes itself. So magnesium will lose its own electron to protect the iron. So it has to be the oxidation of magnesium so that the iron can be protected, and the iron does not have to lose electrons because magnesium is already doing it. Iron is extracted from its ore hematite in the blast furnace. Which statement about the extraction process is correct? Air is blown into the blast furnace to react with carbon. That is very true. Air makes carbon monoxide, which later reduces our hematite. So it is very true. At the bottom of the blast furnace, a layer of molten iron floats on top of the molten slag. No, sorry. Molten slag is on top and iron is at the bottom. So that is not true. Iron is a metal. Now it's more denser, it's more heavier. It can't float on the top. Limestone is decomposed in the blast furnace to produce carbon monoxide. No, sorry. It produces carbon dioxide and calcium oxide. Silicon dioxide is an impurity in the ore, is a basic oxide. No, sorry, it's rather acidic because silicon is a non-metal. So A for apple is the right answer. Which statement about the preparation and properties of aluminium is correct? Aluminium is obtained by heating aluminium oxide with carbon. You can't do that. You can't obtain aluminium because aluminium is higher than carbon. There won't be no reaction because carbon cannot displace aluminium. Aluminium is produced at the anode by electrolysis. No, sorry. Aluminium is always a cation. It is always going to the cathode. Aluminium is unreactive as it forms an oxide coating. That is very true. Aluminium does that. Aluminium is used in overhead electricity cables as it's a good conductor of electricity and has high density. If it has high density, isn't it heavier? I mean, wouldn't it be heavier? So that is why D is wrong. Only C for cat is the right answer. How many moles of hydrogen chloride are formed when 1 mole of methane reacts with a large excess of chlorine? So if you have CH4 and you have a lot of chlorine available, how many H's can you displace? So you can displace 4 H's, and that is why you get 4 HCl's. So 35 has the capacity of producing 4 HCl's. And obviously, all the carbons will get attached with chlorine atoms. Vegetable oil can be made into margarine. Vegetable oils are generally unsaturated. Margarine is usually saturated. Which row describes the changes which take place? It is the addition of hydrogen. So that is why it has to be A or C. And the viscosity increases because now you are making it an alkane. Alkanes are more viscous. Alkanes are more viscous. Which statement about alcohols are correct? All alcohols contain the OH ion. That is wrong. Those are not ionic compounds, so they don't have the OH ions. Ethanol can be formed from ethene using reaction catalyzed by yeast. No, sorry. Ethene is used to produce ethanol if phosphoric acid is the catalyst. Methanol can be oxidized to form methanoic acid. Very true. The alcohol X and Y shown are isomers. So you can see the position of the OH is different. That is why they are isomers. So 3 and 4 is correct. So your answer is D for doctor. Which circled structure shows only the functional group of a carboxylic acid? Now this is carboxylic acid. This is, and this is carboxylic acid. So the answer has to be B for Barrows, because this is the only option where you get to see the more, like the entire carboxylic acid, I mean. Which statement about polymers is correct? Nylon and terylene are both polyesters. No, sorry. Nylon is not a polyester. Proteins and nylon have the same monomer units. No, sorry. Proteins have amino acids. Nylon has a different monomer. Proteins have the same amide linkages as nylon. That is very true. Also known as the peptide linkage. Terylene and fats are esters, but with different linkages. No, sorry. If they are esters, why do they have different linkages? So C for cat is the right answer. Some information about X is given. X contains carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. The products of the hydrolysis of X is simple sugar. So hydrolysis means it's a polymer, and if it's producing glucose, it's a condensation biological polymer. It was biological in nature. It can be starch, It can be glycogen or something of that sort. So it has to be D, because only starch gives glucose on the hydrolysis. So I hope these MCQs are clear to us, and I'll be trying my best to produce one more video about one recent paper. So stay tuned, guys. Thanks.